Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. This is tutorial number 7 in the series of beginners Java tutorials, and in this tutorial we're going to look at getting user input. So I've got my main program here. I've got a main method inside a class, and I'm going to use the scanner class to get user input. Now the scanner class looks like this. So you've already seen the string class. This is scanner, and I'm going to create a variable that can refer to an object of type scanner. So I'm going to call it input. So input is an arbitrary variable name. I could call that anything I like. I could call it nut if I wanted to. It makes no difference. But I'll call this input. And the reason I'm getting an error here at the moment is because I need a statement at the top of the class file that imports the scanner class so that my program knows where to find it. And I can either type that myself, or I can get Eclipse to do it for me. I could click on this icon here and go to import scanner, or my favorite shortcut, I could press Control Shift and O, and Eclipse will add all necessary imports for me. So I've got this import statement here, which must be the first line in your file, except that you could have a package statement on the first line, but we'll look at that in the future. Okay, so I've got a variable here, but I haven't actually got a scanner object. This doesn't actually refer to anything. So I'm going to type here new scanner system.in. And don't worry about this syntax if it's new to you, because we will examine it in more detail later on. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new scanner object, and I'm passing it the standard predefined system.in input stream object. But for the moment I'd suggest just practice typing this. And to get some user input, I'm going to get a line to start with, a line of text, and I'm going to store that in a string. So I'll create a variable of type string, and I'll call it line, and again it could be anything, and I'll say that equals input dot next line. And here I'm going to add a prompt. A prompt is just some text that asks the user to do something. So I'm going to say system.out.println, enter a line of text. And by line, I mean that the user can enter zero or more characters, but he or she must then hit the return key, and that's kind of the definition of a line. And once I've got the line, I'm going to say sysout, control space, you entered line. So I'm going to tell them what they entered. So at this here, I'm just creating the scanner object, then I'm saying enter a line of text, and then at this point here, I'm actually going to wait for them to enter a line. And just to make this clearer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some comments in here. Now you can put a one-line comment in Java by typing / and then just type some text. So I'll say create scanner object, and here I'll say output the prompt, and here I'll say wait for the user to enter a line of text, and then here I'll say tell them what they entered. So I'll run this program, and it says enter a line of text, and I can enter anything here. My name is John. You entered, my name is John. Now we're not restricted to getting just lines of text with scanner. For example, I could get a number. I could say enter an integer, which means a whole number, and I could say instead of string line, here I put to wait for the user to enter something. And here, instead of string line, I'll say int value, and I'll say input.next int. And if you type the first few letters of something in Eclipse and press Control Space, you get this autocomplete pop up, and you can scroll between different defaults with the arrow keys or the mouse, and you can accept a suggestion by pressing enter, which is really handy. But sometimes you need to get rid of extra brackets if you've already typed some. Okay, and here I'll say you entered value, and if I run that, enter an integer 88, you entered 88. This program unfortunately isn't very robust, because if I run it and I enter letters instead of an integer, it will crash. But at least it has crashed in a controlled way by throwing something called an exception, which we'll look at in future. And I can also get a floating point value. I could say enter a floating point value. In other words, a fractional value with a decimal point, and I can say double value equals input dot next double, and I can say you entered value again. There's a little complication here, because if you're in the UK or the USA, for floating point values you'll be used to typing things like 77.4. But if you are in somewhere in Europe outside the UK, you will be used to using a comma instead. So you'll say 77,4. And I'm using actually a Dutch version of Windows here. So if I run this program, I have to enter, for example, 5,6. But if you're in the UK or the US, this is going to be 5.6. And then when I hit return, it's actually telling me what I entered in UK US format. Okay, that's all for this tutorial, just about. If you want more information on the Scanner class, then just type Scanner Java into Google and you can look at the API document. And if you want to make your program more robust, Scanner has a method that will enable you to see if there is a next double or a next int. And you can use an if statement to get a line if there isn't one waiting. But I will leave that as an exercise for you, and in the next tutorial we are going to look at do while loops, which is just a variation on the while loop. And until then, happy coding.